18 years after transmigrating to another world, my cheat finally arrived. A skill called Guidance of Fate gives me one piece of intelligence every month. The first piece of intelligence let me break through to high bronze rank in 2 months and slap the faces of everyone who looked down on me. The second piece of intelligence told me to go save a pair of twin boys, letting me pick up 2 utterly loyal subordinates for free. Once the useless waste of the family, I have now become the most promising pioneer knight. My era has begun. On the day I came of age, an extra voice appeared in my head. It wasn't a hallucination, nor any kind of mental disorder. It was a special skill called Guidance of Fate, like someone whispering in my ear. At 8 p.m. on the first day of every month, that voice would sound right on time, telling me a truly valuable secret. It has been 2 months, and it has never failed once. The first secret was about myself. You possess a hidden talent for swordsmanship. Focus on training for 3 months, and you will definitely reach high bronze rank. I was only half convinced at the time. In the Ikes family, my talent had always been rated as average, neither high nor low, completely unremarkable among several hundred peers of my generation. But I tried anyway. Every day before dawn, I went to the training grounds, swung my sword 2,000 times, and didn't stop until I couldn't lift my arms. In 2 months, I charged from initial bronze rank to the peak of middle rank. Just one step more, and I could enter high rank. The second secret was about Silver Prosperity City. 2 weeks later, in house number 308 in the Western District, 2 groups would carry out a transaction. The goods were 2 boys whose hearts and minds were in sync, one blonde and one silver-haired, both with enormous potential. Save them, and they will become your wings. It was precisely these 2 secrets that gave me the confidence to stand at the door of my father's study and make that decision. My father, Angus Ikes, the Eagle Count, a gold knight, and the 6th family head of the Ikes family. His study was on the 3rd floor of the main keep. The entire Windsor Castle covered 8 square kilometers and was a fortress built purely for war. More than 200 silver knights were stationed here, over 1,000 bronze knights, and more than 6,000 knight squires in training. The 700-year foundation of the Ikes family was concentrated in this gray-white megalith fortress. The family rules were strict. Within 2 months after the coming-of-age ceremony, all children who were not heirs had to make a choice. 3 paths: become the heir's guardian knight and swear loyalty, be recommended by the family to join the kingdom's knight order, or leave the family and become a pioneer knight. Before awakening Guidance of Fate, I had already made up my mind. I was going to choose the first path, stay in the castle and coast through life, eating and waiting for death. With only average talent, no one would expect me to achieve anything anyway. Drifting through my days, that's what I'm best at. But now things are different. I pushed open the heavy oak door to the study. Father was standing by the window with his back to me. Morning light streamed in through the window, stretching his tall shadow long. "Velin, what is your choice?" His voice was deep, every word like muffled thunder. I placed my right hand on my chest and gave a standard knight salute. "Father, I choose to become a pioneer knight and bring new glory to the Ikes family." He turned around, his gaze falling on my face. Even if a gold knight released only a trace of his aura, it was enough to pressure me until I could barely breathe. But I did not avoid his gaze. Silence, a long silence. "This does not suit your character." He finally spoke, his tone carrying scrutiny. "Father, perhaps after coming of age, I changed. I want to be like an eagle and carve out a sky of my own." He stared at me for a long time again, so long that I thought I would lose my nerve. Then he withdrew his aura. "You may remain in the castle for 2 months. As for that news about Silver Prosperity City, the family will give you a reward, and it will be issued together with your aid supplies." "Yes, father." I turned and walked toward the door. Just as my fingers touched the doorknob, his voice came again from behind me. "Velin, I hope you really can carve out a world of your own." I didn't turn back. I was afraid he would see that my eyes were a little sore. After leaving the study, I didn't waste any time and rode straight to Silver Prosperity City. The 30-kilometer journey, on a fast horse, took only 20 minutes. With the time and place provided by Destiny's guidance, the operation was simple. I went directly to the West District Security Department and found Chief Constable Beck. He had served the Ikes family for many years. The moment he saw me, he said nothing and assigned his most elite 6th squad to me. The captain was named Ackman, a veteran at mid-bronze rank, and all 15 of his men were professionals. "Young Master Velin, your orders, please." Ackman stood ramrod straight. "Come with me to a place." Number 308 West District was an inconspicuous house, with a dilapidated door and windows sealed shut. I made a hand signal, and Ackman's men quickly spread out and surrounded the house. I kicked the wooden door open with one foot. Inside, two groups were trading around a table. A burlap sack lay on the floor, and the living thing inside was still moving slightly. The gang leader reacted the fastest, not even grabbing the money pouch on the table before throwing himself toward the window. It's an ambush. Retreat. His scream came from outside the window, short and shrill. The soldiers waiting outside had clearly already succeeded. The remaining lackeys were scared out of their wits, throwing down their weapons and lying on the ground with their hands over their heads. But the two men in black robes did not surrender. They exchanged a glance, drew their swords, and charged at me. I pressed down Ackman's hand as he tried to step forward, then drew my own short sword and met them head-on. The room was narrow, perfect for preventing wide, sweeping moves. I turned sideways to dodge the first strike, then slashed backhanded, cutting open the wrist of the first black-robed man. He let out a muffled groan, and his sword fell from his hand to the floor. The second man seized the chance to thrust at me from the side, and I ducked low, my short sword sweeping upward from below and slicing open his throat. The whole process took only a few breaths. By the time I sheathed my sword again, both black-robed men were already lying on the ground. Ackman stepped forward to inspect the corpses and pulled back their hoods. I leaned in for a look. Both had a black three-leaf clover mark tattooed on their foreheads. Ackman's expression changed on the spot. "Young Master Velin, these two corpses are connected to an important matter. Could you leave them to us to handle? Do as you like. I'm not interested in corpses." And walked straight to the burlap sack and untied the opening. Inside were two boys. One blonde, one silver-haired. Their features were astonishingly similar, like twins, but their temperaments were completely different. Even unconscious, the blonde one was frowning, as if wary of something. The silver-haired one seemed fragile, curled up, his eyelashes trembling slightly. Both had slave marks branded on their foreheads. It was them. I didn't linger. I carried the two boys onto the horse and turned back toward Windsor Castle. Ackman chased after me, holding a bag of confiscated gold coins and trying to hand it to me. "You all split it up. Consider it my bonus for the brothers' hard work." Behind me came the soldiers' irrepressible cheers. Back at the castle, I settled the two boys on the bed in a guest room, then first went to the kitchen to get a few pieces of white bread, and then made a detour to the magic tower. When the family mage heard that I wanted a potion to remove slave marks, he looked me over once and, without asking anything, gave me 2 bottles. When I returned to the room carrying the food and potions and was just about to push the door open, my footsteps suddenly stopped. It was too quiet. There was no sound of breathing inside, no movement of someone turning over, so quiet that it didn't seem like anyone was in there. I switched the plate of food to my left hand, rested my right hand on the sword hilt, and with a fierce kick slammed the door open, while at the same time taking a big step back. A figure lunged out from behind the door, missed, and crashed heavily onto the floorboards. It was the blonde-haired boy. He clearly hadn't expected me to do that. Clutching his chest, he tried to get up, but the fall had hit him hard, and even his arms were trembling. And the silver-haired boy was holding up a wooden stick he'd somehow torn off from who knows where, staring at me blankly. His eyes were wide, filled with fear and confusion. I stepped forward, snatched the wooden stick from his hand, grabbed the back of his collar and lifted him up, then set him down beside his brother. Then I put the food on the table, pulled out a chair, sat down steadily, and looked at the two of them expressionlessly. Before I could even speak, the blonde-haired boy struggled to his feet and shielded his younger brother behind him. He lifted his head to look at me, and there was a resolve in his eyes far beyond his years. "My lord, please spare my younger brother. I am willing to become your most loyal slave, never betraying you for all eternity." I rested my hand on the sword hilt and released the aura of a bronze knight. Although I only let out 30% of it, to an ordinary human boy, it was already like a mountain bearing down on him. He gritted his teeth, his legs trembling, but he did not kneel. "What makes you think I would spare him?" "Because my lord values our worth." His voice began to shake, but he still continued word by word. "You bought us back, so it must be because we are of use. As long as you are willing to spare my younger brother, my life is yours. If you refuse, we brothers would rather kill ourselves here and let you suffer the loss." I looked at him and stayed silent for a few seconds. So they thought I was the one who had bought them. Fair enough. While they were unconscious, they might have heard a few scattered words and imagined me as some noble lord. I had no intention of explaining. There was no need. What I want is for both of you to swear loyalty together. I drew my dagger and pressed the tip against the center of his brow. One person alone is of no use to me. His pupils suddenly contracted. The tip of the blade glinted coldly in the sunlight, only a hair's breadth from his skin. "Swear loyalty, or die?" Anything I cannot obtain must be destroyed. He should understand that. The blonde-haired boy looked into my eyes, then turned back to glance at his younger brother trembling behind him. In those few seconds, his expression changed from fear to struggle, and in the end it turned into a kind of calm relief. He turned around, pressed a hand on his younger brother's shoulder, and forced him to kneel with him. Then he knelt as well, his forehead touching the ground. "My lord, we brothers are willing to become your guardian knights." I withdrew the dagger, the coldness on my face fading and replaced by a gentle expression. I helped both of them up from the ground and patted the dust off the blonde-haired boy's shoulder. "Rest assured, as my guardian knights, I will devote everything I have to training you. From now on, we are family." "Thank you, my lord." The blonde-haired boy lowered his head, his voice still trembling a little. The silver-haired boy copied his older brother and bowed as well, softly saying, "Thank you, my lord." Then his stomach growled. With a loud rumble, it was unmistakable. The blonde-haired boy, who had just looked resolute and ready to die, flushed red all the way to his ears. I couldn't help laughing and tossed the white bread on the table to the two of them. They took the food and no longer cared about manners, stuffing it into their mouths in big bites. They must have been hungry for a long time. 3 pieces of white bread disappeared in the blink of an eye. "My lord," the blonde-haired boy swallowed the last bite and licked the crumbs from his fingers. "This lowly slave is named Orlando, and this is my younger brother, Hebrew. Don't call yourselves lowly slaves." I shook my head and looked at them seriously. "From today on, you are my guardian knights, not slaves. You may refer to yourselves as subordinates or as your servant." The blonde boy, Orlando, froze for a moment. His eyes suddenly reddened a little, but he quickly reined in his emotions and nodded solemnly. "Yes, my lord. Orlando understands." I took out the potion I had brought from the magic tower, had the two of them sit down, and personally applied it to the slave marks on their foreheads. The potion seeped into their skin, and the ugly black mark gradually faded bit by bit until it completely disappeared. I brought over a bronze mirror and placed it in front of them. The two of them crowded in front of the mirror, touching their smooth foreheads and looking for a long time. Then the silver-haired boy, Hebrew, suddenly burst into tears. Then they turned around at the same time, knelt on the ground, and kowtowed heavily to me. "What are you doing? Get up, quickly." I hurriedly pulled them to their feet. Orlando wiped the corner of his eye, looked at his younger brother, then looked at me. The two exchanged a glance, and I still remember that look to this day. It held gratitude, resolve, and a certain weighty promise that would not be spoken lightly. I knew that these two would never betray me for the rest of their lives. After settling them in the room next door, I did not rest immediately. Before they woke up, I went to do one more important thing. I went to visit Elder Miller. Elder Miller, the legendary figure of the X family who had lived for 320 years. Every pioneer who left the family would go see him before departing and ask him to point the way. He lived in an underground dark fortress. The entrance was in the deepest part of the castle, and one had to pass inspection by 2 guards and surrender one's weapons before being allowed to enter the dim tunnel leading downward. The tunnel was very long, winding as it extended downward, and the stone walls on both sides were covered with the names and deeds of outstanding members of the X family throughout the generations. 700 years of glory had thus been quietly frozen into the stone. I walked about 1 kilometer before arriving at the underground archives. Elder Miller lay in a rocking chair, with white hair and beard, and wrinkles on his face like tree bark. His eyes were closed, and his breathing was so light that it was hard to tell whether he was asleep or merely resting with his eyes closed. I made no sound and stood quietly at the side waiting. After an unknown length of time, the old man slowly opened his eyes. Those cloudy eyes turned toward me, revealing a kindly smile. "Little Velin, what brings you to me?" I bowed respectfully. "Elder, today before my father I chose the path of a pioneer knight, but I am at a loss as to where I should go. I earnestly ask you to dispel my confusion." The old man nodded and closed his eyes again. I stood to one side, took out the paper and pen I carried with me, and prepared to take notes. After a long while, he finally spoke again. 3 places, write them down. The first is the Grey Wasteland in the northwest of the kingdom. The monsters there are weak, making it suitable for a start, and the family has 3 barons cultivating land over there, so they can look after you to some extent. I quickly wrote it down on the paper. The second is the Leia Great Forest in the southwest of the kingdom. It is full of dangers there, with magical beasts running rampant, but the opportunities are also great. Another count of the family has established himself in that region. You know this. The third is the Northern Newlands. 3 years ago, the kingdom defeated the Mountain Dwarf Kingdom and seized a large swath of territory. Now it urgently needs people to develop it. There are kingdom legions stationed there, so security is not much of an issue. But the dwarves may counterattack at any time, so the risks are not small either. He paused, then added in an even tone, "These three are the best directions for expansion at this stage." After recording the last word, I looked up to thank him, only to find that the old man had already fallen deeply asleep again. His breathing was steady, as if he had never awakened at all. I put away my paper and pen, gave him a deep bow, and turned to leave the underground bunker. By the time I returned to my room, night had already fallen. Lying on the bed, I held that sheet of paper before my eyes, and by the light of an oil lamp, read over the 3 lines written on it again and again. The wind outside passed through the castle's stone walls, making a soft whistling sound. In the distant training grounds, there were still people doing extra aura training, and dull thuds came intermittently. Velin had a general understanding of the Grey Wasteland, the Lea Great Forest, and the Northern Newlands. As a cautious person, he was more inclined toward the Grey Wasteland. No matter how one looked at the Lea Great Forest and the Northern Newlands, they seemed like powder kegs where war could break out at any moment. He did not want the foundation he had worked so hard to build to become the front line of a war. After weighing everything carefully, Velin decided to choose the Grey Wasteland. Although it was far away, more than 5,000 kilometers distant, he could reach it quickly by taking the teleportation array in the provincial capital of West River Province. But this presented an important problem. He could not bring too many people with him, or the teleportation costs alone would make him bleed financially. Next, he would cultivate and improve his strength, train his own guardian knights, and gather information on the Grey Plains. At noon the next day, Velin brought Orlando and Hebrew to a meditation chamber, and personally taught them the advanced night awakening method step by step. The two of them awakened their aura in just 2.5 hours. This left Velin deeply shocked, and he could not help recalling the phrase, enormous potential, described in the guidance of fate. It seemed he had still underestimated what those 4 words, enormous potential, truly meant. Back when he himself used the night awakening method, it had taken him half a month to awaken his aura. Just as the guidance of fate had told him, these 2 youths would become his wings. Therefore, during this period of time, building a bond with them became the top priority. Otherwise, if the talented people he had worked so hard to cultivate ended up leaving him, who would he cry to? After examining them, he discovered that Orlando had awakened fire-attributed aura, while Hebrew had awakened ice-attributed aura. After instructing the 2 to familiarize themselves with the aura inside their bodies there, he left the meditation chamber and prepared to head to the family archives, where, using his authority, he would choose 2 night breathing techniques suitable for them. After going through layer upon layer of inspections, Velin arrived at the core area of Windsor Castle, the Ike's family archives. As the foundation of the family, this 400 square meter archive housed tens of thousands of important books of all kinds, including night awakening methods, night breathing techniques, and methods for learning special skills, as well as a small number of magical meditation methods and magic skill books. However, as a traditional knightly noble family, the Ike's family had never placed much importance on magic. Arriving at a bookshelf, Velin began selecting suitable night breathing techniques for his guardian knights. Given his status, he could not choose especially high-quality night breathing techniques. After spending half an hour, he selected 2 night breathing techniques suitable for Orlando and Hebrew, used the magic array at the entrance to make 2 copies, and then left. Returning to the meditation chamber, Velin called the 2 over and recited it to them word by word, teaching them how to practice these 2 breathing techniques. The main function of night breathing techniques was to use techniques to convert the powerful magical energy in the air into aura, continuously increasing the body's capacity and refining the quality of the aura, thereby achieving the goal of improving one's strength. Over the next dozen or so days, Velin first took his 2 guardian knights to the Temple of Life to undergo the Guardian Knight Oath ceremony, and after that, all their time was spent in the meditation chamber, racing against time to improve his own strength. During this period, he also witnessed what true genius meant. In just half a month, the 2 of them advanced beyond knight squires and became low-rank bronze knights. Now, all they lacked was training in combat techniques and experience in fighting enemies to the death. April 1st, 9720 of the Radiance calendar, the 6th to last day of Velin's stay at Windsor Castle. This afternoon, he received from his father Angus a list of aid delivered to him by a servant, which recorded the family's support for him this time. Detailed information was displayed on the white paper. 80,000 gold coins, 12 mid-grade magic crystals, 120 low-grade magic crystals, 18 red-scaled horses with a trace of red dragon bloodline, a squad of high-rank bronze knights, numbering 12, 6 sets of exceptional grade full knight armor, 18 exceptional grade knight longswords. Looking at the few simple words written above, the supplies they represented were worth a total of 300,000 gold coins. According to the broad classification of this world, all items can roughly be divided into 6 categories: ordinary, fine, exceptional, extraordinary, legendary, and epic, mythic. The annual tax revenue of the Eagle territory, where the X family was based, was only 3 million gold coins. For example, Silver Prosperity City only had an annual tax revenue of 600,000 gold coins. This was equivalent to his father giving him all the tax revenue of the territory's second-largest city for half a year as aid. Although it included the reward for the information he had turned in, this was still far too much. Velin stroked his chin and recalled that when his 4th elder brother left 5 years ago, the family had only provided supplies worth about 150,000 gold coins. Adding the money he had saved over the years, my startup capital amounts to 305,000 gold coins, enough for me to make a big start and get through the early stage of development. From here on, I have to walk every path on my own. Even with such a huge sum in hand, he still had to budget carefully. Velin repeatedly warned himself in his heart not to let this enormous wealth cloud his judgment. Being his own master was a novel experience for him. After night fell, Velin sat on the bed, silently counting the time in his heart, looking forward to the announcement of the second guidance of fate. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the pleasant female voice sounded once again, bringing him valuable information. 13 days from now, on the road from Windsor Castle to the provincial capital of West River Province, there is a group of dead soldiers lying in ambush at a place called the Sahaklos Mountains, preparing to strangle the 5th son of the Eagle Count and disguise it as a bandit robbery. The strongest among the dead soldiers is high-rank Silver. It is recommended to take a detour, otherwise you will be drawn into the upper-level struggle of West River Province. The Sahaklos Mountains are located in the central area of Iron Mail territory, the territory of the Hux family. As the sworn enemy of the X family, there was no need to think to know that these dead soldiers had been sent by the Hux family to intercept and kill him. Perhaps I should set out early and take a detour to the provincial capital of West River Province. Velin lay on the bed with both hands behind his head, beginning to make a preliminary plan in his mind. At noon the next day, Velin came to training ground number 3 of Windsor Castle, an open space covering 600 square meters. Here, the aid provided to Velin by the X family had been placed. At the center of the training ground, 12 high-rank bronze knights clad in iron armor stood in place, waiting for the one they would serve to arrive. As the captain of this squad of bronze knights, Beld was very confused inside. Although young Master Velin had a very good reputation in the castle, treated people kindly, was sincere, and did not have the common faults of aristocratic arrogance and conceit, he was extremely lazy. He looked like someone muddling along and waiting to die. So much so that while most of the other Eagle noble heirs of his generation had advanced to high bronze rank, or even low silver rank, he was still lingering at mid-bronze rank. However, as the Night Guard squad assigned by the Eagle Count to young Master Velin, they had to fulfill their duty in order to repay the X family for its cultivation of them. At the edge of the training ground, Velin looked from afar at the 12 knights 200 meters away and already understood in his heart that these were the guard squad the family had assigned to him. As he walked toward them, he observed them. All 12 were very young, roughly between 24 and 28 years old, which was enough to show how outstanding their talent was. Barring any surprises, these 12 men given to him by the family would become his right-hand men in the future. As Velin knew, to train a squad of bronze knights from scratch, without spending tens of thousands of gold coins, was absolutely impossible. And the 12 being trained also had to have good talent. Otherwise, no matter how much they were trained, they would still be a bunch of trash. The priest of the goddess of life standing to one side saw Velin arrive, raised his staff, and said in a deep voice, "Under the witness of the goddess of life, the oath begins. Draw swords." Hearing this, Baird loudly gave the order. The other 11 drew their knightly longswords, held them before their chests, and fixed their gaze on Velin. Seeing this, Velin also drew the short sword he carried with him, held it upright before his chest, and looked sternly at the 12 men. "I, Baird, I, Andrew, swear upon my honor, under the witness of the goddess of life, that I will do all I can to fight for the person before me, fulfill my duties, and uphold the knightly code." Wherever his blade points shall be my direction. I, Velin, as the one to whom you swear, accept your loyalty, never to abandon you. May the goddess of life bear witness. A sacred radiance flashed out, enveloping the 13 people. An invisible bond tied the fate of the 12 to Velin. The oath is complete. May the great goddess of life protect you. The old priest announced the end, and then, led by a steward, went down to rest. The 13 sheathed their swords at the same time, bringing this oath ceremony to a close. From this moment on, these 12 high bronze knights and Velin would share the same fate, sharing both glory and loss. Since you have chosen me, I will not let you down. Velin swept his gaze over the 12, committing their faces to memory. Then he went straight to the chest storing the weapons, opened the lid, and revealed the exceptional grade knightly longswords inside. As your lord, this is the gift I give you. In addition, each of you may choose one of the red phosphorus horses here as your mount. And I hope you can become my sharp blades and expand my territory for me. Thank you, my lord. The 12 replied in unison. In a place they could not see, at a window of the main castle, the Eagle Count personally witnessed all of this. Angus was very gratified by what his 5th son had done. One must be generous to those who swear loyalty to you. One must not be stingy. Only in this way can you win over your subordinates' hearts in the shortest time. On the battlefield, the one who will block a sword for you will always be your knight. Your wife, your children, and even your brothers could never do this for you. This was a truth Angus had gradually come to understand over the past 30 years. Go and make your preparations. Tomorrow morning, we will set out, leave Windsor Castle, and head for the provincial capital of West River Province. As you command. The 12 struck their right fists against their chests, bowed their heads slightly, and spoke respectfully. Watching their departing figures, Velin began to take inventory of the remaining items. After making sure nothing was amiss, he ordered the servants to move them onto the carriage outside the secondary castle where he lived. Afterward, he went to the main keep, preparing to bid farewell to his mother. After all, with this parting, he had no idea how long it would be before they met again. For example, his 4th brother who had left 5 years ago had not returned even once, and had been striving in some unknown place all this time. Either remained silent, or astonished the world with a single brilliant feat. This was Velin's evaluation of his 4th brother. His perseverance and talent truly deserved those 8 words. His mind kept replaying how he should say goodbye to his mother. Before he knew it, he had arrived at the door of her room. Gently pushing the door open, he saw his mother, Eliza, sitting by the window, using the sunlight to weave the silk scarf in her hands. The headmaid standing beside her noticed Velin's arrival, lowered her head, and whispered something softly. Eliza stopped what she was doing, raised her head, and looked at Velin. For some reason, although he had prepared many words in his heart, he was unable to say them for a moment. Mother, I'm leaving tomorrow. I know. My little eaglet has grown up and is about to soar high, with a goal of his own to strive for. I hope you will return in glory. That day will come, mother. Velin stepped forward and embraced his mother for their final farewell. 1,000 words were gathered into that single embrace. No one knew how much time had passed before Velin, carrying the silk scarf his mother had given him, left her room. Afterward, he went to his father's study and informed him of his departure, receiving his advice and blessing. After bidding farewell to his parents, Velin returned to his room and had his 2 underage guardian knights pack their things, preparing to set out tomorrow. On April 3rd, 9720 of the glorious calendar, at the east gate of Windsor Castle, Velin, dressed in a light suit of cloth armor, sat atop a tall red-scaled horse, gazing toward a corner of Windsor Castle as he loudly gave the order, "Depart." Under his command, 6 carriages, 12 knights of the guard, and 2 underage guardian knights formed a simple convoy, leaving Windsor Castle and heading toward the provincial capital of West River Province. West River Province was located in the southern heartland of the Kingdom of Aaliyah, covering an area of 950,000 square kilometers. With 2 marquisates, 3 earldoms, and more than 100 viscounties and baronies interspersed among the territories of the 5 great nobles, distributed along the borders to serve as buffer zones. In order to avoid the Sahaklos Mountains located in Iron Shone territory, Velin decided to make a detour through the neighboring mountain forest territory, avoiding interception and assassination by hostile forces along the way as he headed to West River Province. Although this would add more than 200 kilometers to the journey, it was still better than having his still nascent forces wiped out in one fell swoop. More than 10 days later, after traveling 600 kilometers, Velin and his party safely arrived at the provincial capital of West River Province, a large city directly administered by the royal family of the kingdom, covering 400 square kilometers and governing an area of 10,000 square kilometers, with a population of more than 2 million. Stroking his mount, Velin looked up at the 30-meter-high city walls of the provincial capital of West River Province, which were even 3 meters taller than the towers of Windsor Castle. In the sky, Griffin Knights flew by from time to time. He remembered that the Ikes family also maintained a corps of Griffin Knights, numbering 120, and every single member was at the mid-silver rank. In this world, from lowest to highest, all professions could broadly be divided into apprentice, bronze, silver, gold, soul intent, legend, and so on. As for the transcendent ranks beyond that, he did not know of them yet. Walking along the nobles-only passage, the convoy Velin was with moved through unimpeded. Compared with the extremely crowded state of the other passages, its speed was many times faster. Just then, a merchant stood on top of a carriage and waved to Velin and his party. Seeing this, Velin gestured for the convoy to stop and nudged his horse forward, patting its rump as he approached. His face stern as he asked, "Merchant, what is your business?" "Honorable sir, please forgive my offense." The merchant hurriedly climbed down from the carriage, knelt on the ground, and spoke to Velin. When the others on the passage saw this, they all lowered their heads and hurried on without paying any attention. The less they noticed such things, the safer they would be, and the less likely they were to incur a noble's anger. "I forgive your rudeness." Velin was very curious, but his expression remained calm as he said to the merchant, "My lord, thank you for your mercy." The merchant got up from the ground, then continued, "My name is too unworthy to be spoken aloud. I rashly waved to you in the hope of joining your convoy." Velin glanced to the side and saw that the merchant's convoy had 8 carriages. With his status, he could waive the city entry tax for 20 carriages. His own convoy currently had 6 carriages, which meant there were still 14 carriage slots available. It was precisely because the merchant had noticed this that he dared risk his life to wave at Velin. In this world, unless your strength was great enough to ignore worldly rules, when facing nobles, all you could do was humble yourself. Then what price are you willing to pay? Hearing this, the merchant looked delighted and hurriedly said, "My lord, if you help me, I can offer you 2 high-quality half-elves as tribute." Half-elves? Hearing those 3 words, Velin frowned deeply. The southeastern border of the kingdom of Ilia bordered a half-elf kingdom, which was powerful and slightly stronger in national strength than the kingdom of Ilia. Therefore, the kingdom publicly prohibited the capture and sale of half-elves. But rules were rules. For profit, there were still many who would take the risk. Clearly, the merchant before him was one of those people. Moreover, many nobles in various regions were also involved in it, with deeply entangled interests forming a massive industrial chain. As for the royal family, they turned a blind eye to this situation, secretly instructing the directly administered cities of each province to levy heavy taxes and profit from it. The merchant noticed the change in Velin's expression and assumed he was dissatisfied with the price, so he immediately prepared to raise it. But before he could speak, Velin said first, "I have no interest in the half-elves you are offering as tribute." "My lord, it was my offense. I am willing to give you." The merchant wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Listen, merchant." Velin rudely cut him off and said, "If you have something that can interest me, I can let you join my convoy and spare you the exorbitant city entry tax." According to the customary half-elf entry tax in the major cities of the kingdom of Ilia, it was generally 10% of the total value of the slaves. After hearing this, the merchant showed a pained expression, turned back to look at his convoy, then gritted his teeth and took out 2 spheres from his robe, respectfully handing them to Velin. "My lord, these are things I obtained by chance. I hope you will appraise them. If they are not enough, I am willing to make up the difference with gold coins." Velin took the 2 spheres from the merchant's hands and slowly infused battle chi into them. There was a slight reaction, but it quickly returned to calm. Although the reaction was very small, he still noticed it. From the merchant's expression, it was clear that these items were quite valuable, but he still intended to extort another sum, since money from a slave merchant was as good as free. "Merchant, you may join my convoy, but you still need to pay an additional 1,000 gold coins to earn that opportunity." "Thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lord." The merchant looked excited and quickly took out 10 100 gold exchange notes from his pocket, issued by the Royal Bank of the Kingdom of Ilia, with miniature magic arrays and special marks engraved on them to verify authenticity. Velin held them in his hand and carefully inspected them before put them into his pocket together with the two spheres, and urged the red phosphorus horse to leave this place. Seeing this, the merchant hurriedly instructed his men to follow behind Velin's caravan, pass through the noble passage, and head for the city gate. At the city gate of the provincial capital of West River Province, the officer saw the eagle banner of the Axe family planted on Velin's carriage and waved to stop the city guard's inspection, letting them pass. "My lord, this slave trader has 8 carriages and at least more than 30 half-elves. If we were to collect the city entry tax, it would be at least 3,000 gold coins." The clerk beside him watched Velin's caravan pass by and asked in confusion, "Do you think I don't want to?" The gate officer smacked the clerk on the head and said somewhat angrily, "That's the eagle banner of the Axe family. Not some minor noble that can be bullied at will. It represents one of the 5 major powers of West River Province. Do I dare go collect taxes? My lord, I was too greedy." The clerk hurriedly admitted his mistake, not daring to argue. After entering the provincial capital of West River Province, Velin looked at the bustling streets around him, which completely refreshed his worldview. Having lived in Windsor Castle for 18 years, he had hardly gone out. And since he was not the heir, the family would not force him to participate in social activities. He was happy to take it easy, developing a lazy temperament. On both sides of the street, there were all kinds of shops. Magic scrolls, staffs, magic crystals, the flesh and blood of ferocious beasts, and so on. Everything one could need. "My lord, shall we rest in the provincial capital for a few days?" Beld, captain of the night guard, stepped forward and asked Velin. "No, let's go directly to the teleportation array. It won't be too late to rest in the provincial capital of Karad Province, the border province by the Grey Wasteland." Velin waved his hand, signaling the caravan to keep up, not intending to stay in the provincial capital of West River Province. He had already made a budget. Staying one night in the provincial capital would cost at least 100 gold coins, and that money could at least buy 2 serfs. In the early stage of building his enterprise, every bit saved counts. 2 hours later, Velin brought his caravan to the front of a gigantic building. A middle-aged man in a mage robe stepped forward and saluted Velin. "Good day, sir." "Good day, sir." Velin returned a standard noble salute. "My caravan needs to be teleported, with the destination being the provincial capital of Karad Province, the border province. Please wait a moment." Then the mage called over 2 mage apprentices, who stepped forward to inspect, recording information on white paper and making an appraisal. 5 minutes later, the middle-aged mage handed Velin a sheet of paper filled with information. "Sir, this is the estimated fee. According to the privileges enjoyed by the Axe family, you only need to pay 80% of the fee." "Thank you." Velin glanced at it briefly and found that the teleportation fee he needed to pay was 6,000 gold coins. After thanking the middle-aged mage, he led his people through the magic array inspection and into the gigantic building. Velin handed his red phosphorus horse to Orlando, took a 10,000 gold banknote, and went to the payment point not far away. The red-haired woman sitting at the payment point looked at Velin approaching, put away her lazy demeanor, and sat upright. "Ma'am, this is the bill." Velin handed the paper the middle-aged mage had given him to the red-haired woman, then took out the eagle emblem representing the Axe family and placed it in front of her. After the red-haired woman went through a series of procedures, Velin handed her the 10,000 gold banknote. "My lord, would you like gold coins or banknotes?" Faced with the red-haired woman's question, Velin thought for a moment and replied, "A 5,000 gold banknote and 200 gold coins." "Please wait a moment." The red-haired woman entered a string of information into a magical device, very much like the mobile phone from his previous life, which felt familiar to him. In the end, Velin tucked away the 5,000 gold banknote. Carrying an exquisite cloth bag with 200 gold coins, headed toward his convoy. After waiting for half an hour, Velin's group of 15 people, with 18 red-scaled horses and 12 pack horses, and 6 wagons fully loaded with goods, entered the teleportation area. For mages standing at the 4 corners of the teleportation array began channeling magic into the surrounding devices. A few seconds later, a large number of magic circles appeared all around them. Suddenly, a flash of white light went by. After an unknown amount of time, Velin felt his vision return. Looking around, the sight of ruin came into view, and he already knew in his heart, this should be the provincial capital of Karad Province. Compared with the busy scene of the teleportation area in the provincial capital of Shia Province, this place seemed extremely desolate. After everyone had recovered, Velin led the convoy out of the teleportation area. The moment they stepped out of the hall where the teleportation array was located, and onto the main street of the central urban district of Karid Province's provincial capital. Everyone was deeply disappointed. There was human and animal excrement everywhere, and the stench made people feel nauseated. Hoodlums could be seen everywhere, along with extortionate and long-winded patrolmen, and meek civilians and small peddlers. My lord, this is the provincial capital of Karid Province? This environment is even worse than the most rundown slum in Silver Prosperity City. Beld, captain of the night guard, said in shock and disbelief. How could this place be so chaotic? Velin said, covering his mouth and nose, equally shocked. It was completely unbefitting of a provincial capital. He truly had not expected that a provincial capital would look like this. Or perhaps this was the true face of this world, and cities like the provincial capital of Shiha Province and Silver Prosperity City were the exceptions. My lord, where shall we go next? Hearing this, Velin took a map from his chest. It was a map of the entire Karid Province, very crude and marked only with approximate geographic locations. Compared to Shiha Province, which covered 950,000 square kilometers, Karid Province had only a mere 150,000 square kilometers, with more than 60 Viscount and Baron families distributed across it, and a population of roughly more than 1.9 million, about one-third of the population of the Eagle territory of the X family. First, go to the provincial capital's administrative building to register, then visit my cousin-uncle Baron Alcott to learn about the local situation. Looking at Gut territory on the map, 200 kilometers from the provincial capital of Karid Province, Velin closed the map and instructed Belt. Walking along roads full of excrement, Velin felt nauseated. He truly did not know how these people managed to live here. The provincial capital of Kadro Province was very small, and in just over 10 minutes they arrived at the eastern district where the administrative building was located. Calling it an administrative building was generous. In fact, it was just a two-story stone house with a layer of white paint brushed on the outside. Standing at the entrance, no matter how Velin looked at it, the walls were gray, with a tendency toward black. Halt! Where did this country bumpkin come from? Are you blind? Is this a place you should be coming to? Seeing plainly dressed Velin, the guard on duty at the entrance raised the shoddy spear in his hand and said contemptuously, "Insolence." Beld, standing behind Velin, directly drew his knight's long sword, preparing to kill this guard for his disrespectful words. "You dare to make a move?" The guard stepped back a few paces and shouted loudly, "Guards, someone's invading the administrative building." Before long, more than a dozen guards and a knight hurried out of the building and stood on the steps, looking at the group below. Seeing this, the knights behind Velin all drew their long swords, standing in front of him and confronting the guards here. "Who are you people, to dare force your way into the administrative building?" After hearing the soldiers' report, the leading knight glared at Velin's group with hostility and took out a signal magic scroll, clearly ready to activate it at once. "As for who we are, let's set that aside for now, but your guard has so insulted a noble. Even if I were to behead him on the spot, His Majesty the King wouldn't be able to say anything about it." Velin stared sharply at the knight and said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the knight suddenly caught sight of the banner hanging from the carriage in the distance, and his expression changed drastically. He glared viciously at the guard, but he could not back down now. What he represented was the dignity of the governor of Karid Province, and he could not easily yield. "I know what you're thinking. I don't want to make more trouble. Hand that guard over to me for disposal, and we'll let this matter drop. Otherwise, even the governor of Kadero Province will not be able to bear the consequences." "Your Excellency, your words." A portly middle-aged man came out of the administrative building. He had only gotten halfway through his sentence when he saw the eagle banner and swallowed the rest of his words, then turned to the knight and ordered, "Hand that guard over to this, sir." "But, Governor, didn't you hear what I said?" The middle-aged man barked loudly. Yes, the knight was very unwilling, but faced with the governor's order, he could only wave his hand and have his subordinates disarm the guard from earlier and escort him before Velin. Looking at this soldierly ruffian before him, whose face was full of fear, he was clearly no longer as arrogantly overbearing as before. Velin drew his short sword and thrust it into his chest, killing the guard in front of Governor Kadero. "Governor, my apologies. It's nothing. Young eagle of the Ikes family, welcome to Kadero Province." The middle-aged man's mouth twitched as he spoke in a calm tone. Afterward, Velin remained outside the administrative building, waiting for the information registration to be completed. About a dozen minutes later, a staff member came holding a token with both hands, with the front engraved with the two characters, Pioneer, and the back recording Velin's basic information, and respectfully handed it to him. "Governor, farewell for now. Farewell for now." The middle-aged man made a standard noble's return salute, though inwardly he hoped they would not meet again. After Velin left, the knight, who had remained silent the whole time, spoke up and asked, "Governor, this is our turf. Why should we fear a single foreign noble youth?" The middle-aged man put away the smile on his face and said in a deep voice, "If it were the offspring of some other noble house, it would be easy enough to handle. But when it comes to the Ikes family, they're a pack of mad dogs. If you can avoid provoking them, then do your best not to." Seeing that the knight still wanted to ask more, the middle-aged man said directly, "Enough. Continue maintaining the alert. As for that dead guard, compensate him according to the minimum standard for those killed in action. Also, tell your men to behave themselves and stop causing trouble." "Yes, my lord." Though the knight was unwilling, this was all he could do. After leaving the administrative building, Velin did not linger and directly led his people away from the provincial capital of Cadero province. Although, given the formidable reputation of the Ikes family, the governor exiled here would not dare to make a move. There was always the possibility of the unexpected. He had no desire to gamble on what the other party might be thinking. As soon as they left the small city, Belda rode up beside Velin and asked in confusion, "My lord, why didn't you give the order and have your subordinate directly kill that knight together with the 13 guards? There must be a limit to everything. Don't go too far. Otherwise, the other side will have no way out, and you should beware of them fighting us to the death." After hearing this, the confusion on Belda's face did not diminish in the slightest. What was all this about? Seeing the baffled captain of the night guards, Velin sighed and comforted him. "Don't concern yourself with these matters. Just focus on leading the troops." "Yes, my lord." Looking at these politically insensitive knights, Velin decided to seek out an administrative talent during the pioneering campaign. Gut territory, with an area of more than 3,500 square kilometers, was mostly plains terrain, with a population of over 90,000, and ranked among the top noble forces in Carid province. The lord of this land was Alcott Ikes, a sixth-generation member of the X family and of the same generation as Velin's father. Thanks to the X family's traditions, every child of the X family received a good education, especially those who chose the path of pioneering knights, all determined to build an achievement and bring honor to their family. Having come to Cadero province more than 50 years ago, Orchid relied on his own effort and struggle, building this foundation from nothing. "My lord, a guard has come to report that your nephew Velin is here to visit, and he has attached a letter as proof." An elderly butler walked in and reported this to Orchid, who was over 70 years old yet still looked middle-aged. As a high-ranking silver knight, he had only gone through half of his life's journey and still had at least 65 years left to live. As long as he made a breakthrough, his lifespan could instantly increase by another 200 years. Orchid was utterly puzzled as he took the letter. It indeed bore the family crest, but he had not returned to the family for more than 20 years. Although they had exchanged letters during that time, most of them concerned official matters. He opened the letter and checked the secret mark, only then confirming that the visitor really was his nephew. He then began reading the introduction written on it to learn the basic information. "Call Cowell here and come with me to receive my nephew." Orchid straightened his clothes and instructed the butler. "Yes, my lord." The butler stepped forward to help Orchid adjust his attire, then withdrew to summon Cowell, the first heir. At this moment, at the entrance of Gute City, the central town of Gute territory, Velin looked at the clean and orderly surroundings and saw the bearing of the family. Observing the nearby residents, he saw that their complexions were rosy and they were well-nourished, far better off than the commoners under the rule of several nobles along the way. "Beld, it seems my uncle is a man with great ambitions." "My lord, you are right." Beld, captain of the night guard, replied. Before long, a sturdy middle-aged man strode forward with an imposing gait, walking straight toward Velin, followed by several knights and a butler. "Nice to meet you, uncle. I am Velin X, currently the 5th son of Count Eagle." Velin stepped forward, slightly bent at the waist in salute, showing his respect to his elder. "I am very glad to see you, Velin. How has Lord Angus been lately?" Orchid laughed heartily as he responded to Velin. "Everything is well. Under father's governance, Eagle territory has grown ever stronger. Come, let me introduce you. This is my finest son, Cowell." Orchid took Velin by the hand and introduced him warmly. "Greetings, cousin." Velin subconsciously extended his right hand. Cowell paused for a moment, then also extended his right hand and shook Velin's hand. Orchid was also very curious about this novel way of greeting, but as an elder, it was awkward for him to ask. "By the way, uncle, cousin, since this is our first meeting, I have a gift for you." Seeing this, Orlando stepped forward holding an exquisite gift box and slowly opened it, revealing 3 intermediate magic crystals inside. "This is too valuable," Orchid said in surprise, startled by Velin's gift. In Cadro province, 1 intermediate magic crystal was worth 5,000 gold coins, so these 3 were equivalent to 15,000 gold coins. And the annual tax revenue of his territory was only 30,000 gold coins. "Uncle, you flatter me. I have only just arrived here and need to obtain some information, and that cannot be done without your help," Velin replied with a smile, his face full of sincerity. Baron Orchid exchanged a few polite words, then had the butler take away the 3 intermediate magic crystals and warmly took Velin by the hand, walking toward the castle in the center of Gyut City. Along the way, Baron Orchid showed Velin an unprecedented level of enthusiasm. "Velin, the most important thing in a place of pioneering is manpower. As a return gift, I will give you 200 serfs, 20 cartloads of grain, 200 spears, and a detailed map of Cardro province." "Then many thanks, Uncle Orchid." Velin smiled. He was just short of people, and now they had arrived. Upon arriving at Gyut Castle, a banquet was quickly held. In the castle hall, attending the banquet were the 14 knights under Velin's command, and more than 60 knights under Orchid's command. As the star of the banquet, Velin drew much attention, with no fewer than 30 beautiful girls throwing flirtatious glances at him. However, as far as he was concerned, before the age of 30, he would not consider his own marriage, unless there were benefits attractive enough to make him make an exception. Because of this, he rejected all of the one-night stand proposals made by those girls. "Velin, actually, you can, well, relax a little appropriately." Cowl, holding a wine glass, came to Velin's side and said with a faint smile, "No, cousin. As a loyal knight, premarital sex is a desecration of marriage." Cowl looked at his deadly serious younger cousin and smiled awkwardly. "All right then, I won't disturb you." Watching his cousin leave, Velin shook his head with a smile and said nothing. Everyone has their own freedom. Why should he bother managing so much? Soon, the banquet ended, and Velin entered Baron Orchid's study, where they talked by candlelight deep into the night for 2 hours, after which he was led by a servant to rest. Near midnight, Velin lay on the bed, thinking about the specific direction he would head next. According to the information he had obtained from Baron Orchid, the best direction for development at this stage was the southwest of the Grey Wasteland, where there were many plains and abundant resources, but correspondingly, low-level monsters clustered there, making development very difficult. Although he had decided on that direction as the target for development, Velin was not in a hurry to make the final decision. He planned, over the next half-month, to visit 2 other barons of the Ikes family one after another, to obtain more intelligence before making a decision. After staying in Gyut territory for 3 days, Velin bade farewell to his Uncle Orchid. Amid the others' warm send-off, Velin took his subordinates and serfs and headed for the next destination. These 200 serfs were all young adult males, and in the markets of Cardro province. Each could be sold for 33 gold coins. They could be used as cannon fodder, charging into battle, and they could also be used as slaves to help him reclaim the wilderness and cultivate fertile fields. Because the caravan had grown in number, and out of consideration for the serfs' pace, Velin could only slow down. Fortunately, there was Beld, the knight captain proficient in military knowledge, and under his command, the 200 serfs were divided into 20 squads, each carrying out its own tasks, with no chaos appearing. As the days passed, the 200 serfs increasingly looked like an army, though it was unknown what their actual combat effectiveness would be. May 1st, 9720 of the glorious calendar, an important day. After nightfall, Velin sat by the campfire, waiting quietly. The moon hung high in the sky, and soon the time came to 8 o'clock in the evening. The pleasant female voice sounded by his ear once again. A goblin king has appeared in the southwest of the Grey Wasteland, and is currently uniting the goblins of that region, preparing to take revenge on the humans who have been encroaching on their homeland. It is expected to launch an attack plan against the southern part of Cardro province within a year. The southwest direction cannot be chosen for the time being. He had thought the information his granduncle gave him might be useful, but unexpectedly the southwest held such a great hidden danger. Velin shook his head helplessly. At the side, Orlando saw Velin's dejected expression and came over to ask, "My lord, if there is any difficulty, Orlando can share your burden." "All right, I'm fine. Right now, you need to focus on your cultivation so you can help me in the future." Velin looked at the boy, ruffled his golden hair, and told him to continue training and honing his skills, so he wouldn't end up all show and no substance. Just then, Beld, the captain of the night guard, walked over and reported to Velin. My lord, according to the map provided by Baron Alcott, the road ahead is a stretch where bandits are especially active, so we need to strengthen our vigilance. I'll leave the scouting and escort duties along the way to you. This also happens to be a good opportunity to capture a batch of slaves. After all, what pioneering needs most is manpower. Rest assured, my lord, this subordinate will make proper arrangements. On the road Velin had to pass, a group of bandits had gathered together. More than 100 men, armed with swords, lay hidden in the bushes on both sides of the road, greedily watching the middle of the road as they awaited the arrival of a big catch. Boss Cook, in another 30 minutes, that group of fat sheep will pass through here. A bandit ran over and reported to Cook, the bandit chief leading this operation. Tell the brothers to get ready. If we pull this off, there'll be plenty of men, women, and wine for tonight. As soon as he said this, the surrounding bandits burst into cheers, then fell silent again under the bandit chief Cook's reprimand, quietly waiting for their prey to step into the encirclement. Half an hour later, a convoy appeared on the road, slowly approaching the bandits' ambush site. Velin rode on horseback, observing his surroundings, and felt that something was off. Beld, don't you think it's a little too quiet around here? My lord, indeed it is. I'm afraid there may be an ambush. Should we stop advancing and have the knights scout ahead? Beld urged his horse forward to Velin's side, his sharp gaze sweeping across the surroundings before he replied. No need. Those bandits are probably hiding in the bushes up ahead. Just have everyone else prepare for battle. Yes, my lord. Gradually, the convoy drew closer and closer to the bandits' ambush site. One of the bandit leaders looked at the large convoy, especially the 200 spearmen militia, and began to lose his nerve. He advised the bandit chief Cook, Boss, they have so many men. Shouldn't we? Shut up. This is something the Lord above ordered us to do. It must be done. Besides, those are all serfs, just empty shells, nothing more. What's there to be afraid of? If you dare say such things again, I'll boil you. Why yes, boss, I understand. The bandit leader looked at the bandit chief Cook in fear and said tremblingly. He had personally seen the boss boil and eat several subordinates who had defied him, so he certainly did not dare cross the chief. Watching the convoy draw nearer and nearer, the bandit chief Cook held his breath, gripped his spiked club tightly, and stared fixedly ahead, waiting for the best moment. Attack! At a single command, more than 100 bandits rose from the bushes and charged at the convoy recklessly. To arms! Beld, captain of the night guard, drew his knight's long sword and let out a loud roar. Under the leadership of their respective squad leaders, the 200 serfs quickly formed two lines of defense, using the 26 wagons as cover. Although the process was somewhat chaotic, Velin was already quite satisfied, and no longer expected anything more. After all, they were just a group of serfs who had been trained for less than half a month. Surely he couldn't expect them to compare with a professional army. Meanwhile, the 11 knights outside the formation drew their long swords, urged their red-scaled horses forward, and met the bandits head-on. Crack! More than a dozen heads flew up, and the headless bodies of the bandits at the very front ran a few more steps before collapsing to the ground. Faced with 11 bronze knights, the bandits, most of whom were ordinary people, had no power to fight back at all. Seeing this, the bandit leader Cook brandished his spiked club, moved toward one of the knights, preparing to kill one first and steady the morale of these bastard underlings. After cutting down two bandits, the knight Andrew noticed a burly bandit trying to launch a sneak attack, secretly gathering strength. The bandit leader Cook seized the moment, pushed off the ground hard, and suddenly accelerated. Crack! A head flew high into the air. Bandit leader Cook looked excited, but why was he rising higher and higher? That headless corpse seemed to be his own body. Cook, a mid-bronze warrior, died just like that on the battlefield, seeing their powerful boss lose his head to a single sword strike from the enemy. The surrounding bandits immediately scattered like monkeys when the tree falls, fleeing in all directions. Beld seized this opportunity and ordered the serfs to attack, assisting the knights in wiping out the remaining bandits. Standing at the center of the formation, Velin watched the utterly one-sided battle. The formation of serfs had not even approached before the 11 knights had already slaughtered the bandits into a rout, leaving him unsure how to comment. It could only be said that the bandits of Cadro province were too stupid. Without any strength, they still tried to imitate others and come out to rob people. Truly idiotic. This battle lasted only 8 minutes before ending, and what followed was the stage of taking prisoners. My lord, 43 bandits were killed and 57 captured. Beld came to Velin's side and reported. Velin stepped forward, patted Beld on the shoulder, and praised loudly. Your bravery has proven your loyalty. At this time, 2 bandit underlings were brought up by 4 serfs, escorted before Velin to await questioning. Speak. Who is your leader, and on whose orders did you ambush us? Beld drew his long sword and placed it against the neck of one of the bandit underlings. My lord, our leader is called Cook. He just died at the hands of your knights. As for who ordered us, I truly do not know. Looking at the sharp knight's sword, the bandit underling answered tremblingly. Velin stared at the bandit underling who had spoken and waved his hand. Seeing this, Beld directly pierced the bandit underling's throat, and blood gushed out. The other bandit underling looked at his dead companion, then at Beld preparing to strike, and shouted loudly, My lord, I know. Behind us is a noble lord. But only our boss knew exactly who it was. He was just killed by you. Please spare my worthless life. It seems some hyenas have set their sights on us. My lord, there are only a few noble families in this region. If we inquire about reputations along the way, the one with the worst reputation is likely the mastermind behind this. Captain of the Night Guard Beld chopped off the other bandit underling's head with one sword strike and said to Velin, No, it could also be the one with the best reputation. Velin, who understood the trick behind this, shook his head and said to Beld, My lord, why is that? Beld shook the blood from the knight's sword, sheathed it, and asked in confusion. There are many twists and turns in this matter. I can't explain it clearly to you in a short while. When soldiers come, generals stop them. When floodwaters rise, earth banks them. Whatever difficulties we encounter, we need only shatter them with the long swords in our hands. Seeing that Velin was unwilling to go into detail, Beld did not ask further, and returned to the convoy to reorganize the ranks and prepare to set out again. Velin looked at the bandits' corpses lying exposed in the wilderness, his gaze deep as he pondered continuously. Over the next few days of the journey, Velin did not encounter any more bandits. Perhaps those hyenas had learned that the convoy was powerful and were unwilling to suffer losses for nothing, so they chose to give up. After crossing the wilderness, they finally reached their second destination, the territory of Baron Brian, Ridgecrest. Before Velin had even set foot in Ridgecrest, Baron Brian had already learned of their whereabouts. As someone who had only been pioneering for 6 years, Brian's career was in a period of growth, and he was extremely sensitive to the surrounding environment. After all, a force of more than 200 people was very conspicuous on the border of the Greyglow wilderness. Walking at the front of the group, Velin looked at the dust rising in the distance, condensed battle chi into his eyes, and discovered a large force approaching them. He immediately ordered Beld and the others to prepare for battle. Could that be Cousin Velin up ahead? A rough voice came over, causing him to slightly lower his guard. He spurred his horse forward to meet them. The newcomer was dressed in loose clothing, with a knight's long sword hanging at his waist, surrounded by several knights and more than 30 knight squires. Cousin, long time no see. I've missed you greatly. How have you been lately? Velin rode forward and saw that Brian looked no different from when he had left Windsor Castle 6 years ago. Welcome, Velin. Brian dismounted and opened his arms, giving Velin a fierce hug and showing great enthusiasm. Cousin, I'll have to trouble you for the next few days, so I hope you won't mind. Not at all. As it happens, Alec is currently a guest at my castle, and then we can have a good talk. The moment Velin heard that the third person he planned to visit was in Brian's castle, he was overjoyed. Orlando, bring over the second wooden chest from the second carriage. Orlando, who stood behind Velin holding the horses, went to the second carriage and carried a heavy chest over to the 2 men. Velin stepped forward and opened the wooden chest, revealing the exceptional grade full-plate knight armor inside. Baron Brian stared at the gleaming armor, his eyes nearly popping out. Cousin, what do you think of this meeting gift? How could I possibly accept this? Well, then I shall gratefully accept it. Baron Brian stepped forward and stroked this exceptional grade full-plate knight armor that now belonged to him, as if he were caressing his own woman. Hearing his contradictory words, Velin felt he was still the same familiar person, not much changed. Perhaps because there were outsiders present. Baron Brian sensed his loss of composure, coughed lightly a few times to cover the awkwardness, then had someone carry the chest away and said, Velin, come. I'll take you to my castle. Tonight, I must hold a grand banquet for you. Haha, Cousin Brian, I'm looking forward to it. Baron Brian then led the way in front, leading Velin and his party toward his castle. After traveling more than a dozen kilometers, the group arrived at a small but practical war fortress. The castle walls were covered with spikes to prevent creatures from climbing into the castle. Besides that, there were far more bows, crossbows, and ballistas on the walls than one might imagine. On an open field not far from the castle, more than 1,000 sturdy young men were under the training of several knights, practicing simple thrusts. Judging by their clothing, they were likely commoners from Ridgecrest. Following Varen's gaze, Baron Brian looked over and explained with a smile. Varen, the border region is unsettled. All of this is preparation to deal with monster raids. Cousin, you've achieved quite a lot in these 6 years. Naturally. Who do you think I am? I'm Brian, the man destined to become the 6th Count of the Ikes family. Hearing Varen's affirmation, Brian became quite showy and declared loudly. Suddenly, Brian seemed to remember something and asked bluntly, without the slightest reservation, Varen, didn't you say when you were young that you wanted to stay in Eagle territory? How did you end up coming out to become a pioneering knight? It's a long story, better left untold. Just think of it as me suddenly coming to my senses. That's more like it. As a man of the Ikes family, one should become a pioneering knight and fight for a territory of his own. Only then can we live up to our ancestors. All right, cousin, let's talk about this later. First, take me in to tour your castle. I can hardly wait to learn about your fortress. Varen hurriedly cut Brian off and changed the subject, afraid that he might go on talking here for several hours. Entering the hall, he saw a refined-looking man quietly drinking tea while sitting in a chair. Varen, this is Alec, Baron Brian scratched the back of his head, unable for a moment to remember how Varen should address him. Having done his homework, Varen shot Brian a glance, stepped forward and hugged the unfamiliar man, saying warmly, Cousin Alec, I'm very happy to meet you. I'm also very happy to meet you, my brother. Alec was suddenly hugged and froze for a moment, then reacted and returned the gesture to Varen in the same manner. Baron Brian, standing to the side, gave an awkward smile. He had always been unable to sort out the various family relationships and often mistook his own relatives. My lord, the banquet arrangements are complete. Please move to the drawing room. A gray-bearded butler came to the hall and respectfully reported to Brian. Varen, Alec, dinner is ready. Let's go eat first and chat while we dine, and have Varen talk about what has happened in the family over the past 30 years or so. Baron Brian beckoned the two of them and led them to his drawing room. During the dinner, Varen and Alec talked very happily, covering all kinds of topics, including the kingdom's politics, geography, neighboring countries, and many other subjects. It could be said that nothing was left unsaid. Seeing the two get along so well, Brian was very happy. His cousin and his brother were getting along so well, and he was genuinely delighted. What he did not know, however, was that although Varen and Alec talked about everything, both were on guard against each other, and both put on an excellent show on the surface. As time passed, the dinner ended. Dragging his tired body, Varen came to the room Brian had arranged for him. Lying on the bed, Varen closed his eyes, recalled the conversation at dinner, and combined it with the information he had obtained from Baron Alcott, thinking about which place on the Grey Wasteland would be best as his initial direction. He had only one requirement: to ensure safety first, and only then talk about anything else. Brian and Alec both recommended that Varen develop toward the northwest of the Grey Wasteland, which ran completely counter to the direction recommended by Baron Alcott. Because of the information obtained through Destiny's guidance, the direction recommended by Baron Alcott was not feasible, leaving only the northwest of the Grey Wasteland. Looking at it this way, didn't that mean there was no room for choice at all? If he did not consider the risks, the southwest of the Grey Wasteland would be a good choice. Forget it. Safety first. I'll choose the northwest. With Destiny's guidance, once my strength becomes great enough, the entire Grey Wasteland will be mine. When that time comes, will there still be any need to choose? After making up his mind, Varen went to sleep. The next day, Varen slept until late in the morning. After finishing the food brought by the servants, he eagerly went to find Brian and Alec to discuss purchasing supplies. Before that, however, Varen had someone bring over a red scale horse, intending to give it to Baron Alec as a gift to foster their relationship. If he needed to ask for their help in the future, it would be much easier. At this moment, in the castle study, Brian and Alec sat facing each other. Alec, what do you think of Varen? I can't tell. Based only on last night's interaction, it's impossible to judge. After hearing this, Alec thought for a few minutes, then finally shook his head and said, You can't tell, but my cousin is extremely outstanding. He values family ties, though he's a bit lazy. We haven't seen each other for 6 years, and the moment he arrived, he gave me a full set of outstanding grade knight's armor worth 12,000 gold coins. But I'm troubled, because I don't know how to reciprocate. At this point, Brian looked at Alec, staring at him with bright eyes. All right, if you want to give a return gift, That's simple. I noticed the people he brought have no protective armor. You can use 100 sets of leather armor as a return gift. Alec covered his forehead and looked at this big fool, not knowing what to say. Ha ha ha, you're still the smart one. As expected, asking you to come over and replanning the layout of the villages within the territory was a wise choice. Brian laughed loudly and said excitedly, Master, Lord Velin invites you and Lord Alec to go to the training ground. Suddenly, the steward's voice came from outside the door, making Brian stop laughing. Come, let's go see what Velin wants with us. Brian stood up first and walked toward the door. Alec followed close behind, heading for the training ground. In his judgment, Velin had invited him over probably to give a gift, and he began estimating in his heart how to reciprocate so that it would be just right. On the training ground, Velin watched the two arrive and stepped forward to say to Alec, Cousin, look, how is this horse? It is well-fed and sturdy, carries a trace of red dragon bloodline, and has great room for growth. On the market, it is worth 20,000 gold coins. Judging by the horse's appearance, Alec gave an objective evaluation. Cousin, you have a good eye. This is a gift from your younger cousin to you. I hope you like it. Alec replied calmly, Since it is from you, then I'll accept it. As a return gift, I'll give you 60 cartloads of grain and a batch of iron farming tools, plus a detailed map of the Yellowstone region in the northwestern part of the Grey Wasteland. The moment Velin heard this, he was stunned on the spot. How did he know that he had chosen the Yellowstone region in the northwestern part of the Grey Wasteland as his direction for expansion? He raised his head and met Alec's smiling eyes. Sighing inwardly, he said with a smile on his face, Thank you, cousin, for your assistance.